Sure. My Volkswagen is stuff you want to talk about?
Cars in general, and this is car stuff.
Okay. Let's do it. I almost bought one of those Milwaukee electric ratchets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't particularly enjoy working on my car. I mean, I like it, but I hate ratcheting wrenches. Like especially on stupid long bolts, like you may find in some suspension. So just being able to hold the paddle and let it spin up, it's kind of worth it to me.
I don't know, man. My experience with those is that they're always incredibly slow, and I end up wanting to use the normal socket anyway.
Well, I mean, when was the last time you looked at one?
Uh, I don't know, like 7, 8 years ago.
Okay, technology has come a long way.
I'm sure, but unless they go as quickly as the impact gun, I can't be bothered.
So it's probably not
You,
as quick as an impact, but it's
yeah, but like
still pretty
think
quick.
think of it this way: you hand tight with the socket
Hmm.
until the point that you need actual force, and then you just pull the thing with the socket wrench, and it's quicker than holding the button down and letting it do its thing. What about
So,
that?
so Milwaukee's right is designed as a regular ratcheting ratchet.
Yeah, they all are.
So you can use it to break torque. You can use it to tighten that extra little. So this one comes, I think, with like 60 pound-feet, which isn't a huge amount, but it's enough for a lot of applications on a vehicle. Um, I don't know. I just when it hits torque at 60, if you need more than 60, you keep going. I think it might be worthwhile. I'm waiting for Home Depot to bring out the that ratchet with Milwaukee has a 3/8 stubby impact. It's like tiny,
Mm-hmm.
like real, like the huge behemoths that both you and I have with like 1,100 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah,
Um,
1,100 pound-feet of, I believe it's referred to as nut
Nut
busting torque.
busting. Yes.
Nut busting torque. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Nut busting. That's the number that got me. Uh, so we have those, and those are great for like I don't
everything,
know, everything,
everything. You
except
put them on everything.
except where you can't get it in because they're so huge. That's what
Sounds like
she
a
said.
personal problem.
Yeah, right. Well, I've figured out how to work around that. But so the stubby 3/8 is like really tiny, and it has like 250 pound-feet of nut busting torque, I think, which is plenty for probably 90% of the fasteners that you'll be taking apart as like a DIY guy. I don't know about a like an actual professional mechanic, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've not run into a situation where I wanted the impact gun and couldn't use the big one though. Like I couldn't fit it.
hmm, okay.
There are applications like, for example, my seats, which I still have to get that bolt cut off. Um, what's up? Nice to blitz you from chat. Um, yeah, I still have to cut that bolt off because it got too many of the Ugga Chuggas of the big impact gun, and
Uh-huh.
it's got to be cut off. I even bought a new bolt extractor and uh, can't get it out. So I'm gonna have
Yo,
to.
dude, speaking of bolt extractors, so the one I had was like a cheaper one from Home Depot, but
Mhm.
um I don't know. Do you watch a lot of YouTube videos?
Yeah. Before you get into that, someone in chat wants to know what's the best car related joke you've ever heard. I don't know that I've heard very many car related jokes. I got to be honest.
Car related joke. I don't know. There's a bunch of like Subarus and lesbians. Like I lived that for 7 years.
uh, wouldn't it
There's
be
that.
terrible if this person's a lesbian driving a Subaru?
Well, at
Sorry.
that point, it's their own fault. Um, they brought it on themselves. If you're lesbian, I feel like you can't get a Subaru anymore just because of all the jokes.
Yeah, I can't think of any, unfortunately.
Like a car related joke. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know
I'm just
either.
blanking. I was out in the heat all day today, so I don't know. My brain's not working at 100%.
It wasn't that hot today, I feel like, though. I mean, it was warm, but
I
not.
was in the sun. I was baking. I was
That,
baking up.
that
I'm getting
sounds
a
like a
nice tan
mistake.
going.
Yeah, but you're a tropical people, Saf.
I am a tropical people, but I'm currently a tropical people coming out of winter, so I
Mm-hmm.
need a little time to acclimate.
Yeah. So
Acclimate.
anyway, you were asking about YouTube videos,
Oh yeah, dude. So there's this guy
bolt
like
extractors.
Project Farm is the YouTube, right? Is the
Yeah,
YouTube channel.
I've seen him.
He's like a backwoods hillbilly scientist.
He's really
You know,
good.
he's
He's
amazing.
really good.
He's amazing. It's there's so much information coming out of that man, and
I watch a lot of his videos, just like
I do
even
too.
stuff that like I would never attempt or don't really need the information on. But like he had one video where he's like, what happens if you run a small gasoline engine on diesel fuel?
Oh,
What
dude,
happens if you run it 100% on starting fluid? I'm like, I need to know this stuff. I
well, you
need to
never
know
know.
this.
You might need to know it. You
What happens
absolutely
if you
might.
use bacon grease as engine oil? He did it. I don't
I
remember
know.
what the result was. I think there was a lot of engine blow by. But like,
So
I
he's
love those
awesome.
videos. He's great. Yeah.
I especially love his product review stuff. Like I bought
Yeah.
an electric jump pack
Right.
maybe like a week ago, and typically what I'll do is I'll go and I'll look on like Amazon reviews. Just
No,
that's
stuff like that. You got to go to
typically
him. He's probably,
yeah.
and he has a very like methodical, impartial, scientific way of testing all the stuff that like you really need to know about with stuff like that.
So it's one of the few YouTube channels I actually appreciate. I mean, I appreciate all of them because
You
it's
don't
free
appreciate this
entertainment.
channel?
Of course I do, Frank. Of course I do. But I mean, it betters my
Right.
life in
You,
a certain
yeah,
way.
you
Where
actually
it's
get
like,
stuff out of it. Yeah, I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
the things I buy are of a better quality because someone's taking the time to test it out. And the only reason I brought it up is because he did a little while ago. He did a video on bolt extractors. So maybe check that out.
Yeah, I did. I've tried one of the kits, and the problem is because I snapped off the head of a bolt extractor, in there's hardened steel in the now bolt head that I need to somehow remove, and I don't know how to do that.
So
So
I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I ordered a tap and die set. Um,
okay.
when it comes in, you'll just come over. We'll drill it out.
Yeah, but no, that's what I'm saying. We need something that can drill hardened steel.
Well, I'm sure there's some specialty
You know,
drill bit.
this Subaru seat bolt is probably the hardest soft bolt that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's soft enough that we were able to strip it almost instantly with the right size socket, but it broke 4 drill bits trying to drill it out.
Yeah, that was really cool. Those were expensive drill bits too. That's,
Okay, wait. We got the car joke. An old guy and a young guy are both in the hospital. They start chatting about how they got there. Old guys explain, I went to the auto shop, got my Mini Cooper fixed after I drove out, went 100 miles an hour in an instant, and drove into a wall. Younger guy chuckles and says, I'm here because I got my Ferrari out of the auto shop and I thought it was something. I thought something was still broken with my engine. After I saw a Mini Cooper zoom past me, I thought I was standing still and walked out of the car.
awesome.
That's
That's
pretty
pretty
good.
good.
That's pretty good. I'll give you that one. Yeah, so softest bolts that are still hard as hell.
Well,
I don't get it. I don't get it.
it's because they're, you know, it's because we didn't take the time to ground down the edges on that weird e torques or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, it's an inverted Torx.
Inverted Torx, yeah.
Hmm.
So that little bastard is interesting. I was surprised to see Subaru start using inverted Torx.
I'm not. They a lot of manufacturers now want you to. Um, so how do I put this? So
They don't want you to touch their shit.
well, they don't want you to. Yeah, that's the short version. But what's interesting about it is that I talked to my friend Brian, who's actually a mechanic. I interviewed him on one of the podcasts. If you go to the our car dealership service center is a scam because he works for a car dealership in a service center. And one of the things that he mentioned is that the dealerships have a very specific way they want their cars worked on, more or less. And they have a very specific set of tools that they want you to use. Um, and they keep changing things without telling even their own mechanics. So, like an engineer might say, oh, well, this bolt might be better here, even though everything else worked fine. They might just change it for no reason. And it, there's no rhyme or reason to it. So somebody at Subaru said, you know what? I bet you this would look better with an inverted Torx instead of a hex or any other bolt that's been used, ever on these cars. So let's just do that. And they roll with it. And then, you know, the rest of us have to end up buying the tool sets and all the stuff to actually fix them. And it sucks.
Well, it is what it is. I'm in the Volkswagen world now, so I need all this weird shit that
Yeah.
I'm never going to
Well,
use for any other vehicle, except maybe BMW.
I'll say this. Of all the stuff, all the times that I've worked on Volkswagens, I had a Volkswagen for almost 10 years. And even though it takes a lot of specialty tools, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't break. I've never stripped a lug, needed to replace a stud or snapped off the lug bolts inside the hub. That's happened 3 or 4 times on a Subaru.
I mean, they're comically soft.
Right.
Comically soft.
Yeah. Where are you going?
Sorry, I just saw my hair on the picture, and I'm
So you
grabbing
want to
that.
laugh.
Oh, hold on one
I don't even
second.
know if you could see this. I look kind of like a peacock now with
All right,
my
go ahead.
hair. I don't even know. It's not even really showing up on video. But my hair is comically bad right now.
I mean, there's barbers have been closed for 3 months. It's going to happen.
Well, I got my sister to give me a haircut. Once we were able to have like gatherings outside, she cuts hair, so she cut my hair. But the beard is something that needs to be, addressed. You can't really see it very well on here, though.
I saw it last week, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's getting a little gnarly.
So here's a question: Plastidip or vinyl wrap
For what?
for a car?
To do what to the car?
Change the color of the car.
You're going to plastic dip an
Whole
entire
thing.
fucking car?
Whole thing. There is a website that sells a kit to plastidip the entire car.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I vote for plastic dip if you're ever thinking about maybe like a bank robbery. That way, when like you get to a predetermined location, you got a power washer, you change the color of your car, you're off.
Well, actually, the plastidip doesn't just come off with power washing anymore. So
I
I've been
haven't
doing
fucked with plastic dip for like since I was 18, so I don't know about it.
All right, so I've been watching a lot of videos on it because I really want to either wrap my car in a satin silver or plastidip the entire car in a metallic satin silver. But I want it to be removable because I don't want to be stuck with that car color permanently. And so the key to the durability and removability of the plastidip is apparently in the layer, like how thick the Plastidip is once you're done with it. And apparently the most common mistake that's made is that people will, or one of the more common mistakes that's made is that you don't put enough product on. So when you go to peel it off, it comes off in like tiny little pieces, or like you said, you power wash it, the whole thing comes off. There's
Does
that,
Plastic
and
Dip still have that texture? That's just, I mean, do they have kits that don't give you that Plastic Dip texture? That
so it's not supposed to have a texture at all. It's supposed to be matte, but the reason that a lot of people get the texture in it is because they're not spraying it the right way. So you're supposed to lay down a tack coat the same way that you would if you're like spray painting anything normally, and then you lay down multiple wet coats after that. But you're not just misting it on the way that you would with spray paint. You want it to be somewhere between just misting it on and wet enough that it starts to run. Like there's a like sweet spot in the middle of that where it doesn't give a texture. Excuse me.
Rona.
Yeah, Corona.
Um,
It couldn't possibly be my allergies.
no, it's
No.
the Rona.
No, it's the Rona. I'm dying.
Yep. Well, that's pretty cool. That's
So,
pretty cool.
but I'm not sure which one I want to do because I feel like the vinyl wrap
Can't
might be
wax a Plastic Dip, right?
no, it's either way I'm going with like a satin, so it's not going to be waxed anyway.
Yeah, but the vinyl, you can at least, if you wanted to, you could like throw a ceramic coating on there.
True, but why would you? You're going to be removing it. It has to be removed after 3 years.
It has to.
The color. So this is why I keep going back and forth, because even like the high quality Avery vinyl wrap, it has a removability rating of 3 to 5 years, which means that if you don't remove it in that time, it's probably going to come off in like tiny little pieces and be a really bad time. Also, they only rate the color for about that time. So
Okay, well,
yeah,
either way, like you can just because I've been looking into ceramic coating because I mean I've talked to you about this. Once my car comes back from paint, I'm gonna go ahead and do a pretty aggressive 2-step polish procedure on it, and I want to throw a ceramic coating on it.
mm-hmm.
They have some like Avalon King, I think it's called. It lasts between 1 and 2 years. That's perfect.
So ceramic coatings are interesting too, because I've been doing a lot of research on them, because the other option is I'm also considering having the nose of my car repainted, just to same color. But I've got a lot of car's got 164,000 miles on it before it got the
Dude,
turbo.
it's never gonna match. It's not that color gray is never gonna match. If you just spray the nose, you'd have to like get the front clip into the pillars.
Right. No. I would do it right. It would basically be what I'm looking for is the bumper, and then to have some color misted up onto the edge of the hood, onto the fenders. And like, when I say the nose, I mean like from the middle of the hood to the front of the bumper is where the problem area is. And then you have the rest to blend.
Mm.
So
you need something like that.
What's that?
I said you'd need to do something like that.
Yeah, because after 164,000 miles, there's a ton of road rash on that car.
Does it really have that many miles?
What's that?
It's amazing to me that it has that many miles.
Yeah, I mean the car has been fantastic.
How old is it?
It's a 2014. It's
Wow.
got 164,000 miles on it. It is now on its second engine through no fault of its own, but more the fact that it doesn't like water, and the intake is very close to the ground and very close to the front of the car. And so it pulled up a ton of water.
That's nuts. You drove a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even still, the Volkswagen that I have has 18,000 miles on it, and it's 2019. It's less than a year old.
And you've been home for 3 months.
Yeah, and I've been home for 3 months, so that there's that. I actually have to figure out how to turn off the. Now that I mentioned that, I got to figure out how to turn off the oil change light because I just got it done. Um, you know, the thing about newer cars, I don't. You probably
Oh,
haven't
dude,
experienced this.
bring bring it tomorrow. I have an OBD 11.
No, it's fine. I still got to fix the suspension. So the other thing that we have to do, we're going to be working on your suspension, and we're going to be working on my suspension.
Cool. Cool.
Um, yeah. So we're going to do that. We're going to be installing the coilovers in your car first, which I think. So, what made you go with KW?
So I don't like cheap suspension. Um, I've had, I mean, I was 18 before, and I bought, like the cheapest I bought kits that came that fit my Mazda Speed 6. I've done that, and all it did was make the ride bad. Like it didn't really handle any better. The car was lower, sure, but it all it did was make the ride really bad, um, and made the car nervous. And I've had the pleasure over the past 12 years of driving to drive cars that have had some money put into the suspension, and I've driven cars
Define some
that
money. Like what's cheap suspension? What's a decent
so
suspension to you? Like what and what do you mean
it,
by
it
it made
really
the ride bad?
it was just so my Speed 6, right? This was before you knew me. It was just stiff. It was just stiff. I mean, the springs were way too stiff for the chassis. Uh, uh, the shocks were way too, just everything was just like kind of turned up to 11. And it
Hmm.
took what was a sports sedan and tried to make it feel like a race car, which in turn didn't make it perform like a race car. And now it was no longer performing like a sports sedan. Like you couldn't drive it on New Jersey roads without being 18 and not having any sort of back issues whatsoever. Because if you didn't at the beginning of a long journey, you did at the end of it.
So when you say it just made it stiff, like most people would think, okay, you made the suspension stiffer. Now there's gonna be less body roll. There's gonna be, you know, it's gonna perform better because it's gonna feel more planted. Why is too stiff a bad thing?
So, I mean, it's that's a personal preference thing, right? Where do you do your driving? So if I was just taking a car and it was just a complete track slut, and that's all it was, yeah,
Hmm.
it'd probably have a pretty stiff suspension because racetracks, well, racetracks have better asphalt quality than what you see on most roads, right? There aren't too many that are crazy bumpy.
You hope so.
Right. But if you have a daily driver, if you have just a sport car that you enjoy on, occasion going out early on a Saturday morning, your favorite back roads, a stiff car is not a fast car because there are imperfections in real life. You want your suspension to absorb bumps instead of just, hitting an apex, there's a pothole, your right hand side of the car hits that pothole and now gets jolted 3 feet to the right because it essentially just did a little pogo thing because it's so stiff,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
I prefer a compliant ride, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to get rid of my body roll through my suspension. If I want to get rid of body roll, I'll throw in sway bars. You see what I'm saying? I want the suspension to suspend. It's its only job in my book
To suspend.
to suspend, right?
Keep you in suspense.
Exactly. That's its only job. Keep the tires on the ground for the longest amount of time possible. That's its job.
Okay. Okay. So now what's the difference between that and what you're talking about with companies that, or cars rather, that have put serious money into the suspension?
So when I say serious, like when I say serious money, um, it doesn't mean like your coilover setup has to be ludicrously expensive. I think I got mine on sale for $650, right? That's not serious money. That's slightly above four shocks all around territory.
Right. But it's a
Um,
KW suspension, and KW is known for
they
pretty
do
high
R&D,
quality.
right? They do
Yeah,
their R&D.
it's not like they just threw a mismatched set of stuff. They threw a,
Right. They have your springs. They have properly matched shocks that aren't, over or under valved. So it's all designed to work together for the chassis.
what level of adjustment did you go with?
I got the fixed kit.
Okay.
No,
Fixed kit meaning
it's meaning that the rebound and all that stuff it's fixed. The only thing adjustable on my suspension is the ride height.
what about the spring preload?
Nope.
Okay, interesting.
Nope.
So the only thing that you have control over is your ride height.
Yeah.
Why did you go with that over something that would have been a little bit more adjustable that you could later kind of dial into really how you want the car to feel?
Um, because KW has better suspension engineers than me. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, I mean, okay. So for example, on my BRZ, I went with the Tane Flex Z coilovers that have adjustable height. They have adjustable spring preload, and they have adjustable. Well, the rebound and bound are tied together in one adjustment. What I really like about that, specifically the rebound and bound uh, adjustment, is that if I know I'm going to be on the highway, I can kind of crank up the stiffness and make the car feel a lot more planted. And then if I know I'm going to be doing, driving on rougher roads, I can turn it down. As well as with if I lower the car more, I know that I can kind of tweak that a little bit so that I know that I don't bottom the suspension out. I could raise the preload of the shot of the springs and stuff like that. And you have a lot more control over personal preference as
Sure.
opposed to just the ride height.
No, I get why somebody would do that. There's certainly a space for it. I just don't want to have to deal with it.
That's fair.
It is what it is. I mean, it's a GTI, right? It's not a race car. It's just something that um, is a daily driver that is a nice place to be, but can also be a little bit of fun at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. That's what it is. There's no illusions in my mind that it's some sort of front wheel drive time attack car. That's not what it is. I still want it to be comfortable, so I went with the least aggressive option that KW offers, and that's it.
Are you going to go traditional Volkswagen style and slam it?
No, no, no. It's going to be near stock ride height.
So we'll
We
be
live
able
in
to
New
fit
Jersey.
like a toothpick under the front bumper, and that'll be about it.
No,
That's
no,
stock height, right?
yeah, I'm not going for that at all. I don't. That's
No low and slow.
no, no low and slow.
You
No
know what
low
I
and
think the
slow.
most ridiculous trend that needs to stop, like now?
Is it stance?
Yeah, I just it looks bad. It ruins the handling of the car. It
Yeah,
looks
I want to
bad.
know
The
how
tires
long.
wear
I want to know
uneven.
how long of a life they get out of their tires. Like
It,
that's what I
it
want to know.
can't be. It can't be long. Let me put it to you this way: I accidentally left my front right tire at a -4 degree camber for maybe 6 months, and that tire was shot. In 6 months, it was worn through to the cords.
Well, that's a pretty aggressive setup for the street, dude.
It was an accident.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. It was more like, oh, wait a minute, -4. It's got -4 degree camber. I need, and
Oh,
I was lazy because it was cold out and I didn't adjust it soon enough.
right. And now you need
Um,
an tire.
and now I needed new tires. And they're running a hell of a lot more than -4 degrees camber. I mean,
Oh, they got to be running like special camber plates on those things.
well, they
I
are.
think that came out of Japan, right? That style.
Yeah, that's one of those things that comes out of Japan that you're just like, geez, I don't really know about this one. Because like there's nothing about that that's appealing. Nothing about it is appealing.
They get
It
a lot of
looks
stuff right,
bad.
though.
Well, that's what I mean. Like there's a lot of
Uh,
things you look at from Japan and you're like, I don't know, but then you try it and it's like, oh, now I understand why they're doing it. That's one of those things that like, no, no. I'm not doing that. I'm not
It's,
doing that.
I mean, well, it's not for you, right? It's not for everybody.
It
It's,
shouldn't be for anybody.
uh,
It shouldn't be for anybody.
I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody what to do with their own money. So
Neither am I, but like between you and I, it shouldn't be for anybody. I mean, if you have to spend thousands of dollars, because when you think about this, you need to run that level of camber on a car. You need to do suspension. You need camber plates at the top. You need lower control arms, and you need wheels that can like, and they do wheels. You don't need wheels, but you they do wheels too. They're spending upwards of $2,000 or $3,000 on their suspension and wheel kit to
I
make
wonder
their
what it's
car
like to
look like
drive
that.
one of those.
It can't be like
Yeah,
it's probably worse than that Mazda.
utter shit, I'm sure. No, it's definitely worse than Mazda because my Mazda at least had all of the tire touching the ground.
Right.
It's,
The other thing too is that they also run a really aggressive level of stretch on the tire, which and this is what kind of puts it over the edge for me. If you hit a bump at the wrong angle with the amount of stretch that they put on those tires, you will blow the tire straight off the rim. And I'm not talking about like, oh, you hit a super deep pothole at 70 miles an hour. I'm talking like you're cornering and the road has like a crack in it and it hits at just the right angle. You can cause it to pop the bead.
fucked. Yeah, no, I don't get that.
Like it's dangerous, is my point, because
It's
they're driving on the sidewall of the tire.
yeah, no. If I was trying to engineer a car to ride as bad as possible, that's how I would do it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there are some pretty funky trends that come out of Japan when it comes to cars. Some of them are pretty wild, but I can appreciate them, like the aesthetic stuff, like the crazy wings and body kits and all that stuff. Like, all right, that's kind of like a beauty is in the eye of the beholder type of thing, because like you're not necessarily ruining the feel of the car, you're just making it look kind of funky. And I'm not going to knock that because, it is what it is. You put a giant wing on the car, like, whatever.
Listen, bro. They gave the world the 240Z, the AE86, the 22B, Mark IV Supra, R32 Skyline,
R34 Skyline,
Evos,
Evos, the BRZ.
uh, NSX,
I
uh,
forgot about that.
uh, the first one. Um, there's so much good shit. They can do some funky shit, and I'll be cool. Like,
Yes, number one. Yeah, I agree. I wonder if like that level of experimentation is what kind of gets them to the real gems that we have. Like they're not really afraid to do something that's like out of the box, and then sometimes you end up with the Supra, or you end up with the RX-7,
oh, that's another one.
right?
Although I only really like RX-7s. I mean, I've always wanted an RX-7 with an I know it's played out, but an LS swapped an RX-7. I think that would be just
Yeah, that is played out. I would want an no, not an LS swapped, um, a three rotor RX-7.
the rotaries don't do it for me. I mean, I get it. I get it. There's like they have this huge cult following, but they just don't.
I wouldn't like. I'm not a diehard rotary, but like the idea of number one, the engine is modular. Like I'll never forget this. My younger brother, when we were, I don't know, I was probably 20 years old, 21 years old. He was just getting his driver's license and he's looking at new cars. And he, for whatever reason, he loves Chargers, right? So he's looking at a Charger and it's a V6 Charger. And he goes to me, he goes, well, can I just add 2 more cylinders to make it a V8? Like,
No,
no, it's
no.
not really how it works.
Just for
But
the people at home, this same younger brother hopped on Frank's motorcycle and pretended to be twisting the throttle with his left hand. Vroom
yeah,
vroom, vroom
vroom
vroom.
vroom. On a
Until
motorcycle with the throttle that actually functions on the right hand.
yeah, yeah, yes. Not the most mechanically inclined individual, but
No,
you
he's
gotta love
still.
him.
So here's a weird fun fact about him. Actually, he still doesn't know how to install his own wiper blades, but works construction and can build stuff. Don't get
Yeah,
that. I don't
yeah,
understand that for 1 second.
that's weird.
Um,
That's pretty weird.
it's very weird in my opinion.
He shouldn't be allowed to use power tools. Just should. I'm not comfortable in that world.
Yeah, think about that for a second. In a world
I'm
where
not
my younger
comfortable.
brother, who can install his own wiper blades, is working on people's houses.
I'm not comfortable in that world. I'm just. I'm sure he does fine. I'm sure he does fine.
No, yeah,
It's just weird to
he's
me because I've known him for so long, and
right. So, where was I going with this? Oh, the rotary engine. With the rotary engine, you buy a 2-rotor, you can make it a 3-rotor because it's modular. And the idea of being able to do that on top of the fact that you can rev them to the moon and make them really sound like an F1 car. I mean, you got to deal with the mechanical problems that come with it, but um, that kind of does it for me. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of does it for me.
I get it. The sound is pretty insane. I mean, I told you
Yeah.
about that time I saw that crazy fast. Or what was it? Was it an RX-7? Pretty sure it was like a 4-rotor RX-7. It
Mhm.
was just loud and incredibly fast at E-Town. I think Jude ran like a high 9 or a low 10. It was moving.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know
I
if it
mean,
was a 4-rotor or a 5-rotor or a 6-rotor, whatever the fuck it was.
no,
It was
I think
fast.
even like the prototype cars that they used to make for GP racing, I think the most that they went to was like a 4 or 5-rotor, and
Okay.
those were fast, obviously. But yeah, I can deal with some of the weird stuff that they come up with because every now and then you get something like that. I can't do the camber, like the stanced cars. Like that's just no, no.
It's just a different style, dude. It is
I
what it is.
know. I
Well, because not
struggle.
not everybody gives a shit about going fast. You
I
know?
know, I know, I know. I struggle with this because I don't want to judge people for their own personal preferences. And like you know me, I'm all about, do what makes you happy. And if that's what you want to do, go for it. But at the same time, I'm like, the like driver in me is like, what are you doing? What are you doing in that car? It's just you're killing it.
Yeah, well,
Like the soul
different
of the
strokes for
car
different
is,
folks.
yeah, I know.
It is what it is. I mean, I just, like I said, I don't understand it, but it's not my money. I'd never do it.
I
And I'd
also laugh
rather,
at the fact that like you see some of them and they forget to take the stickers off the tread of the tire and it doesn't come off because the tread never touches the ground.
right. That's,
I mean that's kind of laughable if you ask me.
dude, speaking of tires, so I'm looking at buying a set of rims for the GTI,
Mm-hmm.
and I really want RS4s. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's like a 12 spoke design sort of deal. 2 pairs of sixes. I'm sorry,
Um,
6 pairs of twos. Look them up real quick. I don't know if you can look them up. Um,
all right, let's hold on one
just
second.
RS4 rims. They came in 18 and 19 inches, I believe,
RS4 rims.
but they're in a specific color, hyper silver, right? So
Wait, are we talking not Audi RS4 rims?
yeah, yeah, Audi
Oh,
RS4 rims.
like,
Let me see if I can find you the link. Hold up.
all right.
Boom. Okay. So this is just like a generic rim shop, I guess. But that's what it looks like.
All right, so let's oh, that's not what I was expecting actually. All right, so this is like a multi-spoke rim. Those are actually pretty nice.
It's
For
very nice.
anybody that's
It's
going to
the
be listening
color.
to this on like Spotify or something, they're like one, two, three, four, five, six, seven spoke, but they're like split spoke rims. And they're pretty nice. I gotta admit,
Got a
those are
little bit of a lip to it, but the thing
yeah.
that does it with, for me at least, with these, so this look with the color that they come with, hyper silver, right? It's
Hmm.
actually it's a black rim that's painted over with a silver flake,
Okay.
and it just the way it pops when it's clean. And I'm thinking to myself, in my dark gray car, that would look tits. So that's what I have in mind. That's what I'm
Hmm.
thinking I'm getting. Um, but tires, right? I've always been like a big Bridgestone guy.
Okay.
Always been. I had RE11s for the longest time on my STI, and those would grip, 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 grip. They were wonderful. Horrible in the rain, but wonderful everywhere else.
Yeah, it seems to be the way that it always is. I mean, let's be
Um,
real. If they're good in the dry, they're usually not that great in the wet.
no, I mean they barely had any rain grooves. I don't understand exactly how it's a DOT tire, but whatever. Um, so they were properly amazing. Um, but I have experience now with these AS3 pluses, the all season from Michelin. Right, it's their ultra high performance all season.
Okay.
And I had Michelin's on my bikes, and they were always great on my bikes. But these for an all season tire,
You had Michelin on both your bikes?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I could have sworn the BMW came with Pirellis.
No, no, no. It came with Metzger's, and I got it. It's the second pair that went on were Michelin's.
Okay, so why Michelin for the bike? I'm curious now.
The bike, there was no real reason.
You just
I
like
was
them. You're
shop.
partial to the brand.
No, not necessarily even partially. I had no experience with Michelin at that point. I just read some reviews. I think Power Sports. I forget what they were called. It wasn't their most aggressive tire.
Was
Um,
it their dual compound?
it was a dual comp. It might have been like a. It was one of those weird ones where it had this ultra hard, medium, and super soft.
Hmm.
You know what I
I've
mean?
not seen those. I've used dual compound tires before that have a harder compound in the middle, and then as you get closer to the edge, probably at like a not so aggressive lean angle, you get a pretty soft compound. But it's meant to just extend the tire life because, like for
Right.
example, my oh shoot, what's on the duck? They're Pirelli Diablos,
Super
and
sticky.
yeah, super sticky. But I'll never forget when I got the first set of tires taken off and a new set put on. They were so square. They didn't look squared off, but like or I take that back. They looked a little bit squared off, but when I got tires that were properly rounded, I was riding the bike around and it was almost like, oh, what's going on here? Um,
So your bike, right? I was thinking the same thing when you let me ride it. And I figured it out. I don't know if I ever brought it up to you. Those Diablos, they have a super aggressive shape to them. They're
yeah,
almost like a V, right?
almost. Yeah.
So not not looking rounded off, even or just looking slightly rounded off means that they're super rounded off.
Right.
Because essentially, I remember when you put those tires back on, you take a turn and it's almost like the bike fell.
Yeah. It's super difficult to get used to because you kind of just have to have faith that the bike's not going to completely go down
Right.
because it just the way that between the suspension and like how high the bike really is um and those tires it just kind of like I think the term they use is pancakes. It just flops right over to one side and you just have to commit. It's like you're in it. You're gonna turn and you're gonna make it through or you're gonna low side.
So this
um
this conversation is actually bringing up a lot of stuff because I remember now I went with Michelin because I felt how your tire shape reacted, and I wanted to go with a more rounded tire shape. I remember this now.
mm. So you wanted to go with something a little bit less aggressive than what my
Yeah,
bike typically
something a
comes with.
little less aggressive, a little more predictable.
Well, the other thing too is that you had the S1000RR and I have an 848, and mine comes with a slightly more narrow rear tire, and that plays a lot into it too.
Didn't yours come with 190s?
A
A 190 rear?
Let me look it up. Hold on.
I'm pretty sure that's what my Beamer had. It's been a little bit though, so I can't say for sure.
Yeah, give me 1 second, I'll tell you. Cody 848 rear tire size. Size. It came with no, it was a 180. So the front is a 120 70 17. The rear is a 180 55 17. I'm pretty sure that don't let me look it up. Hold on. BMW S1000 RR rear.
I know my rear was a 190.
Yeah,
I remember that much.
Yeah, you're right. It was. That 10 millimeters makes a big difference.
Yeah, sure, especially on a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that had a lot to do with why your bike kind of resisted the lean a little bit more, is because it didn't have as kind of carvy a tire. But whatever.
Well, it only did that until I had my suspension professionally adjusted. Then it was just flicking, just left and right. It transformed the bike 100%.
Yeah, I'm sure
it did wonderful.
I still haven't had
things.
that done yet on mine. I should really go up there and get it done.
You have to.
But you know what it is? I'm superstitious now, because the last time we went to go up there,
you got into a wreck.
Yeah, I got into a minor wreck, and I really don't want to do that. I'm super careful with how I ride, and I'm just like, I don't really need the suspension adjusted that much or that badly. Dude, because I know. I'm sure it did. I believe you. But the way that I look at it is, I'm used to the way the bike rides now. After, what is it? I got it in 2012, and it's like after 8 years. Hard to believe. 8 years. I kind of don't want to change anything about it now.
That's fair. You're used to it.
I'm used to it, and I mean, it's a leisure bike. I'm not. And on top of that, there are no driver aids, so I don't need anything making me more confident on that thing than I need to be in order to handle it safely. The more I feel like, the more confident and the more I'm going to go with the word arrogant that I feel riding it, the more likely I'm going to be to get into a wreck. No,
I mean, in fairness, you got a good head on your shoulders. You're a fairly level-headed dude. I mean, you're not me, so you'll probably be fine.
Yeah, but the other side too is that I'm just not driving up there to get it adjusted. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth it because it won't change the way that I ride the bike at all. Like it's gonna be the same thing.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, it's not like you're bombing down canyons every day.
Right. I already like the way the bike handles, and it is what it is.
Cool.
I do want to get an HID kit for it because the factory halogen lights are kind of getting a little tired.
I could have swore I thought that bike already came with halogens. Oh, sorry, HIDs.
I was going to say it does come with halogens. Halogens are the standard lights that most cars come with. No, if you recall correctly, HIDs, we installed HIDs on your bike. And you nearly had a heart attack when you saw the wires.
I hate wiring. I don't want to learn it.
Where does that phobia come from? I would classify that almost as a phobia, because you get irrationally angry and upset at wiring. Where does that come from?
I don't understand it. Right?
You don't understand what?
So I've had I've had a few cars like my Miata that have had shorts or drains that have fucked shit up in the wiring, and I've
Right.
tried to fix it, right? And trying to track down where your bad ground is, or where your bad connection is, or where you're drawing power.
Okay, so let's hit pause for 1 second. Car electrical problems that you not we're not talking about like a stereo or something that you installed yourself, but like the car itself had electrical problems.
Right,
Okay.
right. Yeah, just stuff like that, like where I just spent days trying to fix something with just a bunch of shit apart, and just looking at like red and green and white and black and brown wires, and just it's almost like a PTSD, really, is what it is.
Okay.
And I don't want to fucking deal with it. Like I can go ahead and install an exhaust. You want a downpipe in your car, I can do that. Axle's fine. You want to pull out a transmission or a rear diff, cool. That stuff makes sense to me. Like you take one part out, you put the new one back in the same way you took it out. Generally, you're okay. Uh, the wiring, I just fuck it.
Do you
Just
understand what's
fuck it.
going on with electricity? Like
What do you
what
mean?
like do you understand what's happening? Like what electricity actually kind of is?
Like I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. I understand.
Um
I understand what it is in like the layman's terms. You flick on a light switch, it's power to your lights.
right, but like for example, when you're talking about finding a short or you're finding a bad ground or something like that. Number one, not to add more rage to you, but you probably could have troubleshot all of that from the fuse box with a multimeter and not had to take anything apart. But basically, think of each wire like a garden hose, and the electricity is the water,
Right.
right? Because there are physical electrons flowing through the copper wire as
Understood.
opposed to
Yeah,
the water.
I gotcha.
So when you have a bad ground, it's like having a kink in the hose. And if you look at, let's say you have a distribution block for water. You can look at the distribution block and say, okay, here's where the flow is being restricted on this line. Somewhere along that hose, there is going to be a problem. So I can kind of walk along that hose and look for the leak or the kink in the hose or so on and so forth. With electrical, it's the same way. A bad ground acts like a kink in the hose. Electrons can't flow freely from one section of the wire to the next. And so if you look at the fuse box and you test all the circuits, the ones that, or the one that's either drawing a current when it's not supposed to be, or not drawing a current when it is supposed to be. I hope I said that right. Uh, that's the circuit that you've got a problem with. And it's usually pretty easy to locate once you look at it that way.
I just have other people do it. I'm far beyond fixing this thing that I have, this aversion to have to wiring. I recognize that I'm far beyond this. I'm happy I have friends that are a little more level-headed and know what they're talking about, because if it was up to me, I'd just fucking throw some gas on it, light it on fire, and walk away.